Welcome to It's Giving Sus, the podcast where the line between the intriguing and the unsettling is blurred. Every episode, we dive deep into the world of true crime and scandals, bringing you the most suspicious and jaw-dropping stories from around the world. There's so much crazy stuff going on, and we need to talk about all of it. Bizarre happenings, scams, cults, crimes, or controversial figures, we're here to dissect it all. Nothing is off limits. Join us as we unpack and comprehend this episode's story. And remember, if it's giving sus, stay curious and stay skeptical.
Warning. This episode contains discussion of extremely sensitive topics. Please check the show notes for more details before proceeding. We ask that you please take caution when listening. If you or someone you know is in need of resources, please check the episode notes for more information. Thank you for listening.
Hello and welcome to another episode of It's Giving Sus, the podcast where the line between the intriguing and the unsettling is blurred. For this week's episode, I'm going to do the top 5 most suspicious stories that are currently going on in the news. So if you've been outside, if you've been under a rock, or just taking a break from true crime, this episode is going to get you caught up on my top 5. There's a lot of stories going on, but my top 5 most suspicious stories of this week. So story number 1 is Mica Miller, and the death of Mica has been surrounded by controversy and conflicting reports. Mica's a 30-year-old, and her husband is a pastor named John Paul Miller. Now, John Paul has claimed that Mica died by suicide at the Lumber River State Park in North Carolina. He reported that she suffered from severe mental health issues, which he tried to manage with her, often involving medication for conditions like bipolar 2 and schizophrenia. He stated that he was very involved in her care. There was a significant effort to manage her health, and he would do things like interventions to make sure that she was taking her medication. Now, that's great and all, but on the flip side, Mica has accused John Paul of grooming her from a young age. She claims that there were tons of controlling behaviors, and he would do things like take away her car when she was hospitalized. And there's even claims of financial disputes. A lot of it is involving the church's money. So the plot thickens, right? The controversy surrounding her death has me really confused because it was ruled a suicide, but there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. So Mica did ask John Paul for divorce, and it seems like they've been having this back and forth for a couple of years now. And John Paul had a girlfriend on the side, but apparently it was fine or whatever happened, but it seemed like they were living 2 separate lives while still remaining married. And Mica did ask for a no contact order shortly before she died. Also, the way that the pastor announced the death is just so peculiar. He did a full Sunday service, a full 90 minutes of his sermon, and he asked the whole church to please stand up. And I'm about to tell you something, but I don't want you to talk about it within the church. And the crowd stands, and he says, I got a call last night that my wife has passed away or she's no longer with us. And he says he's going to be taking a little bit of time off, but he still wants everyone to come to church. And my radar is just going off because more people have came forward with stories accusing John Paul of different things, like leaving his phone number on a receipt to a waitress. And I don't know, he just isn't as holy as maybe you would think a pastor is, but hey, we're all human. The cause of death did come back as a, but Mica's family is not convinced. Case number 2. This one really always gets me. It just gets me. This is the Chad and Lori Daybell Doomsday Prophet trial. And most of us true crime fans probably know about this story by now. It's the trial of Chad Daybell. And he is the Chad Daybell of Chad and Lori Daybell, the Doomsday Prophets, Lori has already been sentenced. She's already been to court. And now we're hearing Chad's entire case. There's been a lot of new evidence in discovery that has been brought forward and just more insight into the text messages between Chad and Lori and just kind of the insanity of it all. This is one of those cases that really shook me to my core. The first time that I heard this story, I believe was in 2021, and I listened to it on a podcast. And then the Netflix series came out, and that gave us a completely new insight, interviewing some of Lori's surviving kids. And now we're seeing the trial firsthand. He is accused of conspiracy to commit murder and first-degree murder in connection with the deaths of his previous wife, Tammy Daybell, and 2 children, Joshua J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Those were the children of his current wife, Lori Vallow Daybell. Additionally, faced charges of grand theft and insurance fraud related to Tammy Daybell's death. And let's not forget that Lori's brother and husband have died as well. So we have these 2 people, we have the religion, we have the doomsday, and all these people dying around them. It's one of those I can't make sense of. The trial, which is taking place in Idaho, has garnered significant media attention due to the bizarre and tragic nature of the case, including allegations of doomsday beliefs and claims that the children were zombies. The proceedings are expected to last about 12 weeks, with extensive testimonies from various experts and witnesses. Lori Vallow Daybell, who is also implicated, has already been convicted and is serving a life sentence. Chad allegedly teaching about what would happen when people are deemed dark and claiming to communicate with the spiritual world through a portal in his home. Isn't that convenient? You just have a portal, it's just like in your house. Like, imagine. These aspects are said to have played a role in the alleged planning and justification of all of these murders. Starting with the children, JJ and Tylee, they were last seen September 2019. They were reported missing by concerned family members. Their bodies were later discovered in Chad's backyard in rural Idaho in June of 2020. It was determined that JJ died from asphyxiation, and Tylee's cause of death was more difficult to figure out due to the condition of her remains, but it was also ruled a homicide. Chad's previous wife, Tammy, died unexpectedly in October 2019, 2 weeks before Chad married Lori. Tammy's death was reported of natural causes, but now that all these investigations are going on, investigators are saying we're suspicious about this, and her body was exhumed. An autopsy indicated that the death was suspicious, contributing to these charges against Chad. From what I understand, this doomsday cult leader, preacher, pastor, blah, 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 Chad Daybell, he claimed that he could see light and dark spirits within people. Prosecutors allege that these beliefs were used to justify or rationalize their actions, including the murders. Chad reportedly taught Lori and others about these apocalyptic beliefs, which included the notions of zombie spirits inhabiting human bodies. The allegations also involve financial motives, including fraudulent collecting Social Security after the kids and his ex, Tammy, were no longer with us. So Lori, the wife that Chad married 2 weeks after his other wife mysteriously passed away, she's already been convicted and sentenced to life in prison for her part in the murders. Chad's trial is the one that is currently going on, and if you go to Court TV or True Crime Network, they're doing daily recaps, so you don't need to sit through the 8 hours each day unless you want to and you're a nerd like me. But they are giving summaries of the things that were brought up during the trial, and there's been some phone calls, there's been some police footage, there's been descriptions of how the remains of the kids were found, and it's a lot, so be warned, but I hope he is found guilty. Now, case number 3 is not one that I was super current on, but it's been popping up all over my For You page, and this is a treadmill murder case. This case refers to the tragic and shocking case of Christopher Greger, who is accused of causing the death of his 6-year-old son, Corey. The case centers around an incident where Greger allegedly forced his son to run on a treadmill at high speeds, which is said to have contributed to the boy's fatal condition. According to reports, surveillance footage shows Greger forcing Corey to run on the treadmill, escalating the speed to a point where Corey could not keep up. This abuse reportedly occurred at a fitness center in Atlantic Heights where they lived. Corey suffered severe physical distress following the treadmill incident, leading to his death in early April 2021. Following the treadmill incident leading to his death in early April 2021, from what an autopsy later determined as blunt force injuries with cardiac and liver contusions with signs of acute inflammation. The medical examination declared the death a homicide linked to the abuse. Christopher Greger was arrested and charged with murder and endangering the welfare of a child. This case is getting a lot of attention due to the cruel nature of the alleged crimes. So currently, the legal proceedings have been in the news, and they include a detailed examination of all of the events that lead up to this little boy's death. The case continues to unfold in court with various pieces of evidence, including the distressing video footage. He's in, this wasn't a treadmill at the house. This was at a gym. The defense argues that Corey's death was due to pneumonia, not abuse, although this is contested by the prosecution and medical experts who were involved. So Christopher, the father, had forced his 6-year-old son to run on the treadmill as fast as he could, and he couldn't keep up, and he fell multiple times, got hurt, and then days later, he left the child to die alone in the hospital. Corey's death was not seen as an isolated incident. Testimonies and evidence presented during the trial suggest a pattern of chronic child abuse. After the incident, Corey was taken to the hospital with serious symptoms, including difficulty breathing and nausea. Corey's condition rapidly got worse, and this ultimately led to his death. Christopher Greger, the father, left the hospital before his son was pronounced dead and was later arrested and charged with murder. The autopsy indicated that Corey died from blunt force trauma that included injuries to his heart and liver, along with acute inflammation and sepsis. These findings support the charges of homicide due to abuse. So this case has been all over the media. There's been various witnesses, including medical professionals and even Corey's mother. They've all testified about the nature of his injuries and the circumstances leading to his death. The trial continues to reveal more about the circumstances and backgrounds of the abuse, with each session providing more insight into the behavior and actions of Christopher, as well as the systemic failures that might have allowed such a tragedy to occur. Case number 4, the Mother's Day murder. This story is about Suzanne Morphew, a Colorado mom who went missing on Mother's Day in 2020. Her remains were found in September 2023 in a shallow grave about 50 miles from her home. The autopsy determined that her death was homicide, complicated by the presence of a mix of drugs, including a strong pain reliever and a powerful tranquilizer that is typically used in veterinary settings. These chemicals, I'm not going to be reading all of those big words, but they are used for large animals to tranquilize them. Barry Morphew, Suzanne's husband, was initially charged with her murder in 2021. However, those charges were dismissed in 2023 due to a lack of physical evidence. At the time of the dismissal, Suzanne's body had not yet been found, and the dismissal was without prejudice, meaning that these charges could potentially be refiled. Barry has maintained his innocence throughout the proceedings. The discovery of Suzanne's body and autopsy findings have renewed interest in the case. Investigators found tranquilizer darts and a dart gun in Barry's possession. Although no tranquilizer chemicals were found in the home, he claimed that they were used legally in hunting activities in Indiana. The case remains under investigation as authorities continue to piece together the events leading up to Suzanne's death. There's been quite a few legal developments and tons of public interest with this case. Authorities and her family seek closure and justice for her death. And finally, case number 5. The case of the baby reindeer. And if you haven't seen this yet, it is on Netflix. It is a series that was created by Richard Gadd based off his own experiences, and originally it was a stage play. The show revolves around the character Donnie Dunn, portrayed by Richard Gadd himself, and he becomes the target of an intense and unsettling obsession from a woman named Martha after a seemingly normal interaction. The series explores the profound impact of this stalking on Donnie's personal and professional life, weaving in themes of trauma and psychological effects of abuse. The series talks about Donnie's backstory, including his struggles with drug addiction and sexual abuse he endured from a mentor, which are portrayed as significantly influencing his interactions and reactions to Martha's stalking. The background sets a complex scene where past traumas intersect with current crises. Gadd has claimed that the show is emotionally 100% true to his experiences, though some aspects have been adjusted for the screen. The intensity of the stalking depicted in the series is actually toned down compared to what Gadd has stated he experienced in real life, which has included an overwhelming number of communications from his stalker. Put a pin in that. Baby Reindeer has sparked significant discussions about stalking, mental illness, and the legal and social systems handling of such issues. Plot twist. Hear me out. Listen. I can't even make this up. I started watching Baby Reindeer like a few weeks ago whenever it was new, and I just like put it on in the background, and then I was like so sucked into it and disturbed and unwell, and there was times I even had to turn it off. I wasn't going to finish the series, but with this plot twist, I saw that there was like an IRL controversy going on here. Let me tell you the tea. Fiona Harvey has come forward because she felt that her portrayal in Baby Reindeer was both damaging and inaccurate. She claimed that the character of Martha, which she believes is based on her, led to severe personal repercussions, including death threats and harassment. Fiona Harvey expressed her distress over how the show depicted her actions and character, leading her to publicly refute the claims made in the series. She felt compelled to defend her reputation and clarify her side of the story in response to what she perceived as false and harmful representation. What? Excuse me? Fiona Harvey's realization that Baby Reindeer might be about her likely stemmed from specific details within the show that resonated with her personal experiences or interactions with Richard Gadd. Okay. But Fiona went on Piers Morgan publicly and claimed she's never watched the show. So how would she know that it's about her? And then she said, well, people were coming to her and the internet figured it out. But if none of these things are true, how would the world have figured it out and come to you if you never had done any of those things? So to me, it's giving sus. But I need to know everything. I need to know more. One of her past employers, like IRL, like a Fiona Harvey, the real Baby Reindeer person, right? One of her old employers came forward and said that she had to fire Fiona after a couple days of work. And then she was like scared for her life because her behavior was just erratic. And when I tell you, go check out the interview with Piers Morgan, like It's giving sus. That's all I could say. So Fiona has also reported that she's been harassed following the portrayal of the character Martha. According to her statements, the series has led to significant personal repercussions, including death threats and experiencing other forms of harassment. Well, if it's true and she allegedly did do those things to Richard Gadd, then it's kind of like an eye for an eye. I don't know. She expressed distress over the negative impact this show has had on her life, describing the public response as horrendous. Harvey's allegations suggest that the depiction of Martha has triggered a public backlash against her, which she found deeply troubling and damaging. Yes, I understand that, Fiona, but how? How does the public know that it's you if you never did anything like that? And how would they know it's you? That's like, okay, I watched the show that's like based on a true story, and then somebody's like, oh, like that really sounds like Danny. Like, yeah, because I'd have to like do something like publicly that people would be like, oh, it sounds like her. It's so odd. Fiona Harvey has expressed intentions to sue both Richard Gadd and Netflix over her portrayal in the series Baby Reindeer. She alleges that the character of Martha, which she claims is based on her, was depicted in a way that is both inaccurate and damaging, leading to personal repercussions, including harassment and death threats. Harvey's decision to take legal action stems from her dissatisfaction with how she's been represented in the series and the severe impact she claims it had on her life. All right. And this one is the one I had to talk about. Here's my thoughts on Baby Reindeer. I feel like if these things were true, the stalking, the 41,000 emails in a 6-month period, and Gadd, the creator, this is based on his story. In the story, spoiler alert if you haven't watched it, he kind of like needs his stalker, Martha. He goes through these really like dark and low, like horrible periods where he like reaches out to her. And then when she's not talking to him, he's like, where is she? So it's like this super toxic back and forth where he's like, well, I don't want her stalking and harassing me and sitting outside of my house at a bus stop for days on end and yelling at me every time that I walk by and throwing a beverage in my ex's face and, just all of the activities. But then when she's not there, he's like having these fantasies about her and he like reaches out to her too. So it's totally, I'm talking about the movie, I'm talking about the series. It's so hard to determine what is real and what's not. Do I believe Donnie's story in the show or do I believe Martha's? It would be interesting if they did like a follow-up series through Martha's perspective because there's two, in my opinion, allegedly like broken people having this experience and their perceptions could be, well, I wasn't stalking him. I was just showing interest and support. And, his perspective was, she sent me 41,000 emails. So I need some facts. Do you know what I mean? I need some facts here because there's a difference between being obsessive and being a stalker and being toxic. And I kind of talked about this last week with Grant was obsessed with a cam girl, but Grant was also getting reinforcement from the cam girl when she would say nice things to him and write him notes and give him gifts and like reciprocate in a way, even though that was like her job. So this is like a different situation, but it just fuels the delusion. So in the case of Baby Reindeer, the delusion that Martha's having perhaps about Donnie, and then Donnie plays into it and does message her back and that's just fueling the fire. It's all insane. It's all insane. It's all too much. And that's all I have for you today. A quick recap of all of the things I've been binging this week and can't get out of my mind. Let me know in the comments what case you think is most suspicious. I'm picking number 5, which is Baby Reindeer. Like, yes, the first 4 that I talked about are tragic and awful, and all the flags are there. But I'm just so confused by this baby reindeer situation. Like, who is telling the truth? What is real? Maybe that's the whole point of this. I don't know. But I'm picking number 5. Baby reindeer has me out of my mind. All of this surrounding controversy with Fiona coming forward. What? That's the one. It's rent free. It's going to be here. I need to know everything. Miss Meg West will be back with me next week. We're a lot more entertaining together, but if I can't be entertaining, at least I can be informative. Please subscribe if you haven't done so yet, and join us back every Monday for another episode. And remember, if it's giving sus, stay curious and stay skeptical. Thanks for watching.